In The Walking Dead Season 2 video game, the developer Telltale Games continues the journey of a young 11-year-old girl, Clementine, as she tries to survive a zombie apocalypse with a band of other human survivors. It's a gripping, compelling narrative that unfolds through a story-focused game, driven by interactive choices from the game player. In this video, we'll look at how to think about a film adaptation of the story, and how to write a scene that reflects an emotional climax for Clementine's arc. Per usual, there will be spoilers for the story in The Walking Dead Season 2, so I recommend checking out the game before proceeding further. The second season game is framed as a coming-of-age story for young Clementine, given that she witnessed the death of her surrogate father figure, Lee, a man who cared for her at the end of the first game. So the spirit of Lee and his positive influence on her hangs over every scene as we help Clementine to navigate various challenges, building relationships with new survivors, and encountering old friends like Kenny from the first game. Overall, Clementine has a core need and a serious objective to survive this apocalypse. Toward the end of the game, there's a final confrontation between two of the survivors, Kenny and Jane, as both don't trust each other and are often at odds. When the two are locked into a mortal hand-to-hand fight, the game gives Clementine the choice of either shooting Kenny or shooting Jane to stop the conflict. I imagine in a feature film adaptation of the story, we could take advantage of the setting, which is a snowy blizzard landscape, and use that as a transition into a mini scene where perhaps Clementine has a conversation with the deceased Lee, and this leads into her decision to shooting either Kenny or Jane. In the game, there is an actual flashback sequence where Clementine imagines her younger self talking to Lee when he was alive and reflecting on what is the right thing to do in their dire circumstances. But for the purpose of writing this fictional scene, I'm imagining a new creation that will highlight Clementine's core need and also themes of the story. On a visual note, I thought of using the blizzard weather with low visibility and snow flurries as a transition element that can take Clementine in and out of seeing the fight escalate between Kenny and Jane, and then bring a vision of Lee into the scene. It's similar to how Hamlet would see the ghost of his father in Shakespeare's play, and in this new scene, only Clementine would see this vision of Lee. So we've established Clementine's core need as to survive the zombie apocalypse. We can also establish the theme of the series, which could tie into Clementine's coming-of-age arc. Perhaps the theme could be, growing up means making difficult choices that cause you to lose parts of yourself. I thought of this theme along a life and death spectrum because it foreshadows how Clementine has to let go of her innocence as a child and to make really hard decisions to survive as she grows up in this apocalypse. Setting up this theme also provides an emotional base for the new scene. We can ask, what is the emotional center of this new scene? What is it really about? I think it's about Clementine initially not being able to overcome her guilt for killing Lee at the end of the first season, and eventually being able to let go with Lee's help. This is part of her childhood innocence, now incompatible with the preteen that she's growing up to be in this horrific world. Lee became her surrogate father figure and cared for her, but when he got bitten by a zombie, he told her to put him out of his misery by shooting him, and this allowed her to escape. Clementine was only a child when she shot Lee, so this is a situation a child should never face. However, the weight of guilt on her is heavy and still remains, so she can't let it go on her own. She needs the love of her surrogate father to help her understand what she did and how to move forward. With this emotional grounding, we can start to work out the story beats for this new emotional climax scene. We'll start off with Kenny and Jane already fighting each other in hand-to-hand combat in the middle of the blizzard, and Clementine is a few yards away holding a gun. When Clementine is faced with a decision to either shoot Kenny or Jane to stop their fight, she can't do it at first because the guilt of killing Lee paralyzes her. When the ghost of Lee shows up in the snowy blizzard, she tells him that she's sorry as she fights back tears. He can embrace Clementine and then tell her that she did the right thing to put him out of his misery. He can tell her it's okay and that it's time to move on. Clementine would regain composure and then confess to Lee that she doesn't know what to do with Kenny and Jane. Lee tells her that he doesn't know what to do either, but he trusts her. Lee tells her that he knows she'll do the right thing. Sometimes you gotta do the hard thing because it's what you can live with the next day when you wake up, and every day after that. Clementine tells Lee that she doesn't want to kill anyone. She doesn't want to become a monster. This is highlighting the guilt that she has held on from shooting Lee. Lee tells her that no matter what she decides to do, she'll always be the same Clem to him. This line of dialogue is what gives Clementine the strength to face the tough decision ahead. This would help Clementine to regroup and head toward Kenny and Jane in the snowy blizzard. As they appear up ahead, she preps her gun. And she hears Lee's voice telling her how to hold a gun, flashing back to the first time when he taught her. Clementine aims the gun and then fires, and then we cut to black. So overall, these are the rough story beats for a new emotional climax scene for a fictional film adaptation based on the Walking Dead game series Season 2. The process of writing the scene started with digging into the emotional territory of where the main character Clementine is at during this point of the story, and recognizing how this new scene can pivot the story toward its ending. The scene would also usher Clementine into a new phase of her coming-of-age arc, setting her up for future adventures in the later seasons of the series.